Hello everyone, I am Dr. Akhilendra and our today's topic is diabetes, which is a common chronic metabolic disease which is characterized by hyperglycemia as cardinal biochemical feature. This means in diabetes there we will find hyperglycemia. Okay. Now, etiologically, diabetes can be divided into type 1 diabetes, type 2 diabetes, and other causes which lead to the hyperglycemia and diabetes. So, most important part as uh, about diabetes in pediatrics is type 1 diabetes. Okay, type 2 diabetes, it is generally seen in adults, so we will not deal with type 2 diabetes here. We will talk about type 1 diabetes. Okay, so in type 1 diabetes we will find there is beta cell destruction which usually leads to the absolute insulin deficiency. So in type 1 diabetes it is characterized by absolute insulin deficiency in the body. This can be due to immune mediated or due to some idiopathic cause. But whereas in type 2 diabetes, this may range from predominantly insulin resistance with relative insulin deficiency to a predominantly insulin secretory defect with insulin resistance. Okay, so in type 1 diabetes there is absolute insulin deficiency, which means secretion and production of insulin is reduced or absent inside the body. Now, important other causes, other etiological classification of diabetes are: first one is genetic defect in beta cell function. This is seen in neonatal diabetes, and there are various type of mutations which causes neonatal diabetes. Another important classification is maturity onset diabetes of young syndrome. In this there are 11 types of MODY identified yet, and their chromosome and the enzymes which are defected in the maturity onset of diabetes of young are given in this table. Okay, now some drugs which causes diabetes mellitus. So we have to know about some common drugs and some chemicals which causes diabetes in human. So most important drug is glucocorticoids. These causes hyperglycemia. Another important drug is phenytoin. Then cyclosporin and sirolimus also causes diabetes. L-asparaginase, which is used in leukemia, can lead to hyperglycemia. Beta blockers, diazoxide, nicotinic acid, and pentamidine. These all are drugs which causes hyperglycemia and diabetes. One rodenticide also leads to the diabetes, which is as vigor. There are many viral causes and viral agents which are identified to cause diabetes. Most important of these viruses, rubella. Congenital rubella syndrome is associated with diabetes, and diabetes can be present at any age, and generally it is seen after 20 years of age in the congenital rubella syndrome, but it can occur in children as well as in adults who are affected with congenital rubella. Other important viruses, mumps, enteroviruses are also cause diabetes. Okay, but important to remember is rubella is highly associated with diabetes. Okay, now we these are the action of insulin in the human body. So in body, in postprandial state, liver, muscles and adipose tissues, there are different function in the fasted and postprandial states. So you can read in this table. Now this diagram shows how diabetes is progress. In type 1 diabetes, initially we will find that there is normal glucose tolerance and normoglycemia, but there is increasing impaired glucose in the type 1 diabetes. In type 2 diabetes, we can find that the arrows are reverse, also in reverse order. So if we start medicine or exercise at any stage of life, type 2 diabetes can be reversed. Overt diabetes mellitus can turn into prediabetes, and prediabetes can turn into normal glucose tolerance by various interventions in type 2 diabetes. Okay, now we come on to diagnostic criteria for diabetes. So what is impaired fasting glucose? Impaired fasting glucose is labeled when fasting, which is minimum 8 hours of fasting for adult, fasting plasma glucose is between 100 to 125 milligram per deciliter. It is called impaired fasting glucose. And if fasting plasma glucose is more than or equal to 126 milligram deciliter, it is called as diabetes mellitus. Or impaired glucose tolerance, if 2-hour plasma glucose during oral glucose tolerance test is more than 140 milligram per deciliter but less than 200 milligram per deciliter, then we call it as impaired glucose tolerance. But if 2-hour plasma glucose during oral glucose tolerance test is more than or equal to 200 milligram deciliter, it is labeled as diabetes mellitus. And if hemoglobin A1C HbA1c is between 5.7 to 6.4%, we call as prediabetes or dysglycemia. And if it is more than 6.5% or equal to the 6.5%, it is labeled as diabetes mellitus. There is one another criteria for diagnosis of diabetes mellitus. We labeled a person as having diabetes if they show symptoms of diabetes which are polyuria, polydipsia, and unexplained weight loss, along with random plasma glucose of more than or equal to 200 milligram deciliter. Then we labeled that patient is having diabetes mellitus. Now we are going to discuss about only type 1 diabetes here. So in type 1 diabetes, the type 1 diabetes is the result of interaction of genetic, environmental, immunologic factor that ultimately leads to the destruction of pancreatic beta cells, and this destruction of pancreatic beta cell leads to the insulin deficiency. Okay, so we talk about some genetics and risk associated in diabetes mellitus. Risk of type 1 diabetes mellitus in a progeny is about 3 to 4% if mother of that child is affected. And if father is affected with type 1 diabetes, then risk of recurrence in his uh, uh, child is 5 to 6%. If one sibling is affected, then 8% risk is there that another child will be affected from type 1 diabetes. In monozygotic twins, the concordance rate ranges from 30% to 65%, and in dizygotic twins it is around 6 to 10%. So here we can see dizygotic twins have more risk of developing diabetes as compared to siblings. So this tells that there are some factors, uterine factor or factors related to the pregnancy, which increases the risk of type 1 diabetes. Now most individuals with type 1 diabetes mellitus have HLA, DR3 or DR4 haplotype. Okay, haplotype DQA1 301 and 302 and 201 are strongly associated with type 1 diabetes. Here one important thing is that this haplotype increases the risk of diabetes and this haplotype decreases the risk of diabetes mellitus. Okay, so now what is the pathophysiology which leads to the origin of diabetes mellitus? In type 1 diabetes mellitus, these delineated abnormalities are identified in humoral and cellular arms of immune system. Here we can find that patient affected with type 1 diabetes, first their islet cell autoantibodies are formed. Then second point is activated lymphocyte in the islets, peripancreatic lymph nodes and systemic circulation. So what we can find, we found in pancreatic islets there are activated lymphocytes, and these lymphocytes are also present in the lymph nodes surrounding the pancreatic tissue and also in the systemic circulation. In third phase, lymphocytes that proliferate when stimulated with islet proteins. And last we can see release of cytokine which causes the insulin within the insulinitis. Okay, here another part which is important for pathophysiology of diabetes. Here we can see pancreatic islet molecules which are targeted by the autoimmune process. These molecules which are affected by antibodies are insulin, glutamic acid decarboxylase. Okay, this GAD is the biosynthetic enzyme of the neurotransmitter GABA, and islet cell autoantibodies or islet cell antibodies, these are also affected. And lastly, these autoantibodies affect beta cells and beta cell specific zinc transporters. Okay, so this overall autoimmune abnormalities leads to the decreased insulin synthesis in the pancreas. This is the natural history of type 1 diabetes. Here previously we thought that decrease in the beta cell function was linear, but now studies suggest that we have uh, relapsing and remitting pattern of insulin secretion in the body until unless overt diabetes is seen. Okay, next thing, in type 1 diabetes, the, in type 1 diabetes, initially when patient start developing hyperglycemia and insulin secretion is decreased, then there is a phase when there are reserves of insulin which is secreted from the destructing beta cells, and these lead to the euglycemic state for a brief time. This is known as honeymoon period in type 1 diabetes mellitus. During this period, insulin requirement of patient is decreased and euglycemic state is there. But as soon as all beta cells are destroyed and insulin which was secreting due to the destruction of beta cells is decreased, then again we have absolute insulin deficiency and hyperglycemia in that child or in that patient. Now when we move to the treatment part of type 1 diabetes, and there is only one treatment for type 1 diabetes mellitus is, and that is exogenous insulin. Okay, these are the different preparations of insulin. Insulin preparations can be divided into short acting, long acting, or intermediately acting insulin secretion. Insulin preparations. Now, in short acting, we have regular insulin, and regular insulin onset of action is around 30 minutes to 1 hour after the injection. We give we can give regular insulin as subcutaneous or as IV. IV is used during the diabetes ketoacidosis or when patient is severely sick. Intravenous infusion of regular insulin is given only during that time. Rest of the time we give subcutaneous insulin injection. So the onset of action is after half up to 1 hour, and peak action is seen after 2 to 3 hours, and its effective duration is only 3 to 6 hours in case of regular insulin. Now these are recombinant human insulins like aspart, glulysin and lispro. Their onset of action is within 15 minutes and effective duration is 2 to 4 hours. So these short acting insulin preparations are used before half hour before meal, like half hour before breakfast and lunch and dinner. Now this NPH insulin is known as intermediately acting insulin. Its onset of action is between 2 to 4 hours and its effective duration is 10 to 16 hours. Okay. Now these are recombinant human insulins, Detemir and Glargine. And Glargine and Detemir are used as basal insulin injections. Basal insulin injections, and these are effective during a period of 20 to 24 hours. Okay. So these are our long acting insulins. Now there is combination of insulin are also available in the markets. These 70-30, 75-25 showing how many percentage of that insulin preparation in the combination. So 75-25 here, 75% protamine lispro. So lispro, protamine lispro, and 25% is lispro. In 70-30 NPH and regular, we have 70% NPH and 30% regular insulin. This is known as mixed chart insulin, and these insulin, this mixed chart NPH and regular is cheaper insulin. Other Glargine, aspart, lispro, these all are costlier preparations. Okay, so this is the basic about these insulin. So another thing is that we have to keep these recombinant insulin preparations at strict temperature conditions, like we need refrigerator for these preparations, while regular insulin and NPH can be stored in normal room temperature, but their efficacy will be decreased. Another important thing is that uh, if we found that insulin preparation is clouded, then we do not use it. Okay, these are some regimes which we follow in the patient of diabetes mellitus. This regime is of basal bolus insulin preparation. So in basal bolus insulin preparation, we use one long acting insulin which provide basal insulin level which lasted for 24 hours. So a fixed amount of insulin is always there in the blood, and when patient is having some meal, then after meal his insulin requirements will be increased. So this increased insulin requirement will be substituted by some short acting insulin which is known as bolus insulin, dose. So in basal dose we can use either glargine, okay, or detamir. These are long acting insulin. And for bolus doses we can use regular insulin or any other of these short insulin preparations. So we have to give bolus dose of insulin before breakfast, half hour before breakfast, half hour before lunch, and half hour before dinner, okay. And we give basal dose of insulin during the bedtime, okay. So this basal dose will maintain basal level of insulin over 24 hour, and these bolus doses uh, will complete the increased insulin requirement during the meals, okay. There is another, this dose regime is for, this dose regime is for mixed chart insulin. In mixed chart means this type of insulin we have to give two doses of mixed chart insulin, one in before breakfast, half hour before breakfast, and one half hour before the dinner. So in this mixed chart there is already pre-mixed regular insulin and pre-mixed NPH. So this regular insulin will deal with the uh, increased blood glucose during the meal, and this NPH will maintain the basal insulin level, okay. But this type of regime generally do not leads to the euglycemic state, and the glycemic control of the patient is poor when we use this type of mixed chart preparations, and best glycemic control is seen in the basal bolus regime, okay. So these are preferred one, and this is cost effective and cheaper. So due to affordability issues in our country we are still using mixed chart insulin, and if patient is affordable then it is better to give them basal bolus regime of the insulin. So this is the regime of regimen of insulin in type 1 diabetes in pediatric patients. In adult who are insulin dependent, they follow different regime. They only give basal dose of insulin because their body is still secreting insulin, and the mealtime hyperglycemia are well tolerated due to the secretion, increased secretion of endogenous insulin and in adult patients. So this type of regime is followed only in pediatric age group, while in adults they follow different regime. So what is, how can we calculate the dose which is required to the patient? So this table tells if a prepubertal child who came uh, who do not have diabetic ketoacidosis, then he require 0.25 to zero point 0.5 units per kg per day of insulin dose, and so on. But in case of patient presenting with diabetic ketoacidosis, we have to give higher doses of insulin in that patient. Another important thing is that regarding insulin, that we have to increase the dose of insulin according to the calorie intake of that child. So there are different methods of calculating dose of insulin according to the calorie intake of that patient, but those are very complicated and well beyond your uh, levels, so I will not discuss about these regime. This will give you about rough idea that how much insulin units are required in a patient with diabetes. Another important thing about insulin is that we give insulin subcutaneously by using insulin syringe. There are two types of syringe there, one is insulin syringe and one is BD syringe. In insulin syringe 1 ml is equal to 40 units, and in BD syringe 1 ml is equal to 100 units. And there are different preparations of insulin available in the market. some of that insulin have 40 international unit or 40 unit per ml preparations, and others have 100 unit per ml preparation. So we have to first check that how much units of insulin are there in each ml, and we have to use our uh, dose calculation accordingly. Okay, so this was about type 1 diabetes and its treatment. So what are the complications in type 1 diabetes? Most important and most dreadful complication of type 1 diabetes is diabetic ketoacidosis, and other complications are generally in related to the uh, impaired glucose tolerance, and um, these are due to the hyperglycemic state. In hyperglycemic state, which leads to micro and macroangiopathic changes. So in patient with diabetes, we can find most dreadful complication is diabetic ketoacidosis. Other complications are diabetic retinopathy, nephropathy, diabetic foot. So we have to manage all these complications, and we have to taught parents and children to modify his life due to the illness. So we required diet plan for child with diabetes, and a strict diet plan should be followed. And there are so many different aspects of managing diabetes. We require sick day managements, which is also which is also is not for undergraduates, but you have to have some idea about the um, vast vastness of type 1 diabetes and its management. Okay, so I think this will sum up your lecture. Thank you.